My interest is in traditional architecture and the forms of traditional cities. So both the relationship of architecture to the city and the distribution of basically built stuff on the landscape, essentially how we manage growth and how we manage our buildings at the urban and kind of rural scale. In places like Pienza in Italy and lots of other beautiful Italian towns, finding ways to build compact, beautiful villages and preserve open space is sort of what those places do really well. So I felt like I had the experience and the kind of point of view that would allow the school to do something that would both solve its needs but look like it fit into the landscape, look like it was always there at some level. When I met Lynn Eshelman, I was actually reading a book about 15th century humanist architecture in Italy. And I was reading about Pienza at that time. It was a city that I'd known since I was a student. And Pienza is a model Renaissance town. It was really the sort of first Renaissance urban planning exercise. And it's a tiny little town. It was the hometown of Pope Pius II. And Pius thought that he could build there what he couldn't build in Rome. So he decided to turn it into a model town. And because he was trained as a humanist, he was trained in classical literature and essentially as a rhetorician, somebody who was very in command of language and words. Pius thought he could do that with architecture too, that he could see architecture as a kind of rhetorical exercise that could speak about the values and the ideals that he wanted to build into this community of Pienza. And so what Pius tried to do is dispose these buildings in ways that could talk about how they relate to each other in this ideal community that he was building, and essentially how they could shape a space that would be there for the whole community. The piazza was the shared space for everybody. So the buildings talk about their role, how they relate from one to the other, and how they relate to the town itself. And the space that they shape talks about the community itself as the place where all of those values come together. And in that sense, that's what I've tried to do with the classical language, traditional urban space, and the materials of which the TASIS campus is made, is make buildings that speak to the values and aspirations of TASIS, both in how they're arranged and disposed, how they shape space between the buildings, and how they articulate themselves through the use of color, materials, size, kinds of window openings, and the classical orders themselves, how they speak to essentially the values and the aspirations that TASIS wants to talk about to the world.